Daniel here for Tabletop for One. Please join me at the table as I teach and play through Rogue Angels. And I thank you for joining me for this tutorial and solo playthrough of Rogue Angels, Legacy of the Burning Sun. Rogue Angels is a game designed by Emil Larsen, and it's coming to Kickstarter on September 4th. I've been provided with a prototype copy to show you the tutorial mission, show you how the game plays. I will be passing on this prototype copy when I'm done making content for this game. Now in Rogue Angels, it's a sci-fi adventure campaign game that has 6 chapters, I believe, at least 6 chapters for the campaign. I've been provided with the first chapter, and you can see this is a very thick chapter book here. It has a ton of missions. And this is just a small preview of what's to come. So there's a lot to this game. And what you're going to see here is all prototype components. A lot of them are very basic components. So you can expect upgraded quality on the paper, on the cards, on the character boards, tokens, even the little stands that are going to hold the standees. They're actually going to have turn dials and stuff to track enemies' health. So that'll be really cool to have. So what you see here is going to be very basic. But we'll go ahead and get started. So what I'm going to do for you today is I'm going to play the first chapter. And this chapter is kind of like a tutorial chapter where it teaches you movement, it teaches you how to interact with objects and hack terminals, as well as encountering enemies and giving you choices on outcomes for the mission. And so what you're going to start off with is you're going to start off with the campaign book. And you're going to choose a mission from the book. Now we're going to start off with the first mission of the game, but I'm going to give you kind of the backstory here. And it says, for 1,000 years, the galactic assembly of the sovereign civilizations have governed the burning suns. By providing a forum for cooperation between the most advanced species of the galaxy, the longest peace in galactic history was achieved. A true golden age of harmony and prosperity. Unfortunately, however well-intentioned their foundation, however principled its leaders, no civilization can endure forever. Eventually, inevitably, the assembly failed. War is now spread like wildfire, stifled by bureaucracy and paralyzed by insurrection. The assembly desperately tries to keep old grudges and new rivalries at bay. But unchecked greed, overweening pride, and perhaps yet something darker threaten to consume the galaxy. As the member civilizations draw their battle lines and stake their claims to the stars and systems, lives and loyalties are torn asunder. From Eva Ariel to Panacea, from Namias to Modius, people who have ever known peace and privilege must reckon with the new harsh truth that the galaxy isn't as safe a place as they believed. Beyond the Assembly's control, though, an uncertain life is business as usual. For the freelancers and free spirits of Brimstone Base, home of the Hellfire Pirates, risk is all in a day's existence. A little too close to the galaxy's incandescent heart, vexation is a toxic, superheated mess of a system, a perfect mess in which to disappear. Brimstone buried deep beneath the sulfurous surface of Fury's Fall is a lodestone for the disaffected, bounty hunters and runaways, thieves and smugglers, slaves and slavers, those for whom the suns don't shine. It's a dangerous place. Violence decides the pecking order. But someone always has a job for an enterprising mercenary or a desperate one. And if your skill and luck hold, there's a lot of credit to be made, particularly now. War, after all, is good for business. Now, before we get into the mission here, the first thing we need to do is assemble our party. And so if you are playing solo, you're actually going to play with 2 characters. And so I've chosen these 2 characters kind of randomly to play. I have Vera and Kalu. She is a Terran and has certain abilities here. You'll see human resolve here. I'll explain those abilities later. Now this is the introduction side to the character board here. It shows you how much focus you have, how many shields you have. This is a cooldown track here at the bottom for your cards. And so you use this for the first mission. Then at the second mission, you're actually going to flip this over and use the other side, which now gives you the access to this behavior board. As you make choices in the game, you'll be able to unlock different behaviors and gain these tokens which amplify your abilities. I'll kind of explain that in the playthrough because I won't actually have this side. I'll be playing on the other side, but I'll explain and show you which cards have that. And this also here shows scars. that can be gained during events. So that's what that looks like there. We'll flip it back to the other side. Now the other one here is Koroks, and he's a guardian. And so he has a special ability here. He has more shields and less focus. And of course on the other side, this is his setup as well. All right, so those are the two characters that I've chosen for the game. You're also going to gain each of their character decks, which consists of 7 action cards. And so I have one deck for Vera and one for Koroks. But now we are ready to actually talk about the mission here. Because when you do a mission brief, you're going to have some story elements. Like right here, we are approaching the pirate security officer. And eventually he's going to lead us to the next area, where we meet up with a guard and an enforcer, and they're going to force us to give over our weapons and our gear. Actually, it says that any neomorph or champions are to hand over the gear, but we just have our weapons to hand over. And so now I lose these 2 weapons here for Koroks, my Titan longsword and pulse gun. There says weapon down here at the bottom, so it's easy to recognize. So those will get set aside for now. And for Vera, I believe she only has 1 weapon. Let's see. Yeah, she has her pistol here. And I think that's it. So that's all that she loses there. And then it goes on to more story here. And so then we head to the bar. And then it turns out at the bar that we get called by this guy, Umbrasius, to come and meet up with him. So that's going to be the start of the mission. So Umbrasius wants us to meet up with him. And so what we're going to do is we're going to find the map. So the first thing that we do is we look in our map book here, and we'll flip the page, and actually it's map 001, which will be this map here. It shows map 001 here at the bottom. And so this will be our starting map for the game. And so you follow directions on the setup here. It tells you what comes in onto the board, and then anything that might get taken away. It also tells you to set the turn limits, which I'll show you in just a moment. So our first thing here is to set up a bunch of blocked off barriers. We have a barrier here, a barrier here, and then the last barrier is set up right here. And then it also says to put a point of interest, this little green token here with the radar symbol. We'll place that there. And that's where we're supposed to meet up with Umbrasius. And then we'll take our stand easier for both of our characters. Now we do have to choose one to be the commander. In multiplayer, the commander would be the one who ultimately makes the decisions if everybody can't agree on something. In solo play, it's a specific character designated for that mission to be the commander. Certain mission parameters might require the commander to do something. And so we're going to place them according to here. We have a full 4 square spots to place them. I will place them both right here. And I will make Vera the commander, so she's going to be right here. It might be easier if I just lay this down so you can see her, and the space that she's on is where her base is. And so we're going to need 4 dice here. These are, again, our prototype dice. They just have labels on them, but they'll be nicer dice when you get them. We also need our activation tokens here. We'll set these here on our characters, and it'll help us determine whose turn has gone and whose it is. And then the next part here is we're going to set up our focus and defend tokens. We put these at max for the start of the mission, and so we'll set them here just like that. And the last part of this particular mission for setup, we set up the turn limit. Now on here it says 3 or 4 or 5, and that is dependent on 2, 3, or 4 characters. So since we have 2 characters, we will have a turn limit of 3. We will take this token here and place it right here. And so we have 3 turns to complete the mission. And what it tells you here on this book is it tells you the success and the failure. And so the success for this mission is to get the commander adjacent to the point of interest. And then the failure here is if the turn token reaches 0, restart the mission. And so let's talk about turns and what we're trying to do. So we're obviously, we just need to move into the space that's adjacent to this point of interest. And so we just need to move into this space here, and it needs to be with the commander, so it's with Vera. And so what we have here is a little player aid that gives us our options for the turn. It tells us that we can perform 2 actions, and then we end our turn with a free rest action, flip the activation token, and decrease the turn token by 1. All right? we're not going to have an enemy turn, so we'll skip that, but we'll do a mission check at that point and then update the mission if the mission is done. And so we'll look over here, and this is the possible actions that we can play. We can do 1 action card, we can concentrate to gain 2 focus, and we can rest to move all our cards 1 slot on the cooldown track. And so we get to choose 2 of these actions, and we can choose 2 of the same action, 2 different actions, that sort of thing. So let's talk about some of the cards that we have available. So your characters come with a variety of cards, and some of them are gear, like this one here is a jetpack, lets you jump over objects or empty spaces and that sort of thing. This one here is a dash, and it tells you you get to move to. And these effects here are the ones that I talked about before. These are behavioral effects. So as you change your behavior or do different things in the game and add to that chart on the normal side of the character board, you will gain tokens that let you modify your actions. So in this case here, you could spend a red token to deal 2 damage to an adjacent enemy. Or this one, you can spend a green token to move an ally 2 spaces. But its basic ability is here. Now, when you use one of these cards, you're going to often roll dice. It tells you how many dice to roll, and that can modify what happens. I'll explain dice in just a moment. Let me finish showing you these cards here. This other one is a basic interact, which can deal damage to an enemy, or interact with an object, or heal an unconscious character for 1. This is also another version of interact. It's a calm wristband that lets you interact with an object for 2. And then this one here is a medic kit, lets you heal yourself or a character within 2 spaces for 1 damage. And then this one here lets you move. This is a basic move. And so on all of these here, you're going to see numbers at the very top, in the top left here. These are all cooldown numbers. So when you play one of your cards, you're going to play them to the cooldown track. So let's say if I played dash here, I would play it. It says 2, so it's 2 cooldown. So it would slot in the 2 slot right here. And at the end of your turn, you automatically get a free rest action, which moves all the cards 1 space to the left. If they move off the track, meaning off this number 1 spot, then you get that card back. Some of the cards do not have a cost. You get them back right away, and so in fact, you can actually use the same card twice in 1 turn. And so that's an option as well. Now, like I said, when you use a card, you're gonna roll a die or more dice, depending on the card. So what I'm gonna do right now, since I need to move the commander, is I'm going to use dash. I think that's a good move right now. So we'll use dash because it lets me move 2. So one thing you need to know about the card is the dice can modify any number in the brackets. So this one has 2 in the brackets, and that symbol there means spaces. So if I get a +1 or +2 to the die value, this will move an additional amount of spaces. So in this case here, let's go ahead and play this. We'll slot it in our second cooldown spot here, and then we'll roll the 2 dice and see what we get. And there you go. So I got some results, some good results actually. First of all, we have a +2. So now I can move a total of 4 spaces. Well, that's great. But this other one here says a +1 or gain a shield. So you get a choice. So there's a whole different ways that this could, turn out. So I could, move up to 4 spaces and gain a shield, or I could actually add the +1 to the +2 on top of the 2 movement and move up to 5 spaces and not gain a shield. So it gives you some nice little options there. So that's how that works. Now I'm at max shield, so it doesn't matter either way, and I only need to move 3 spaces, so I will go 1, 2, and 3. And at this point here, since I'm already adjacent to the point of interest, I have 1 action left to do, but I don't really want to do anything because that's where I want to end up in order to progress the mission. So I'm going to do the rest action. Again, that's one of the 3 actions at the bottom here. We have play, concentrate, or rest. And so I will do the rest action. But before I do that, let me talk about concentrate. Concentrate lets you gain 2 focus. And now what focus are, this yellow resource here, it lets you re-roll a die. So if I wanted to, I could spend 1 focus and re-roll 1 of the dice. I can keep spending focus as long as I have focus to spend, but that's a decision you have to make in the moment. Of course, I didn't need it for this round. And so instead, I will do a rest action, which lets me move all my cards on my cooldown by 1. So that moves down there. And now we're going to end the turn. And if you follow the turn structure here, you end turn with a free rest action. So I get a rest action on top of that, gaining dash back to my hand. And then the next thing here is you flip your activation token. So this flips over here. And then you decrease the turn token by 1. All right. So we're fine on that. The turn token is only at 2. It's only if it reaches 0 that we fail the mission. But now we go on to mission check. So we check to see if we've completed the mission or not. And of course on here it says to be adjacent to the point of interest, which is that question mark there. And so we are. And since we've completed it, it says if success, continue to C1 mission update number 1. And so we're going to continue on to that mission update here and check out what happens next. It's going to have a little bit of a story here to keep going. Now, Umbrasius is telling us that we need to go into this other room, hack the computer, and get our weapons and gear. And of course, we'll go along with that. After all, he's promised us a lot of money in return. And so that's what we're going to do right now. So what it tells you up here is it tells you which objects to remove that are outlined in red here. So we are removing this barrier here and the point of interest here. Those get removed. And then it's going to tell us to add in a door and a console. And so we have a door here, and doors always go in between two spaces, so it's right on this line here. I did fail to mention that on this board, any red space is a wall. So see the red lines here? These are walls here, and they're going to affect line of sight and movement and that sort of thing. I meant to explain that earlier, but there you go. So the walls, you have to keep them in mind. So you can't just walk through anywhere. Just like I couldn't have walked through this wall here, I had to go through this little open doorway there. And the other thing that we need to place on the board is the console. And so we'll place the console, it shows it in the bottom left here, and we'll place it right here. I'll just keep it laying down so you can see where it's at. The door will get removed when we hack the door. Now, 2 things to note when you do a mission update. If new enemies enter onto the board, you're going to have to activate them before you do any turns. And the other thing is, unless something says in the campaign book, all this stays the same. So she's already activated, so she can't do anything right now. And her focus and shield stay the same as well as his. And so now it is Korok's turn, and he needs to go and activate the door. Now, the way you activate doors and hack consoles and that sort of thing is done with an interaction bag. So this interaction bag here has a variety of different colored little tokens here. Again, these are going to be changed by colored discs from what I understand. And so what happens is that when you interact with something, by using one of your interact actions, like basic interact here, I don't think he has another interact. No, he just has basic interaction. So if he wants to interact with the door, it says here, you interact with an object for 1, and it's in brackets, so it can be modified by that die. What that means is you draw from this bag that number of tokens. And so what you're going for is you need 3 of the same color that aren't white. Now, if you draw 2 whites for any particular object that you're interacting with, then you'll fail that hack and everything gets put back into the bag for that object. So you definitely don't want to draw whites. You also need to draw 3 of the same kind. Now, when you draw them, let's say I drew 3 right now, and I drew these 3 here. And so none of these are white. Now, any of these will work, but I have to choose one color to keep to hack the door. So let's say I choose purple. I would place the purple one there, and the rest of these would go back into the bag, and we'd have to interact with it again in the next turn. And that's how that works. So we'll do that until we get 3 in a row to open the door, and then we have to do the same for the console, trying to get 3 in a row there. And so that's our goal for this mission update number 1. Now, we do get more turns. It says we have a turn limit of 6 this time, so that's kind of nice. But we have to move Korok's adjacent to the door, and so it can be one of these 3 spaces here by the door. The diagonal counts as well, but we need to move him first. So the question is, what do we want to use to move? We have heavy charge here that lets me move 2 and then deal 2 damage to an enemy. Well, there are no enemies, but moving 2 might be nice. It would get me right close to it, and if I get a +1 on the roll, it'd definitely be worth it. But this will be on cooldown, so I have to keep that in mind. But maybe that's what I'll do. I'll use heavy charge. I'll place it in this 3 slot here for the cooldown since it's a 3 cooldown card. Now, let me just briefly talk about cooldowns. You'll notice that some of these cards have the same cooldown. Let's say I use both these cards in the same turn. The first one here, going in the 2 slot. If I use another one that needs to go in the 2 slot and this is full, it has to go to the next one to the right. It has to go to the next higher slot. And if it can't, you can't play that card. You'll have to rest. So if the 4 slot was full along with these 2 and I wanted to play heavy charge, I wouldn't be able to play heavy charge till I rested, moved everything down 1 space, and then I could play heavy charge into that 4 slot. But we're playing heavy charge right now since I have all my slots open, and I will be able to move 2 spaces. Let's see if we can't get more. Now I only get to roll 1 die with this card, so let's see. And I do get a +1, so since this number here is in the brackets, move 2, I can actually make that a move 3 now with the +1. So I will go 1, 2, 3. And so now I'm right up against the door here. And I have one more action for the turn, so I want to use basic interact. Now this one's a 0 cost, so this is going to go right back into my hand. But I do get to roll 1 die. And let's see how much we can interact the door for. And I got nothing. That's a shield. I don't need any shields. So the question is, do I want to spend 1 focus to reroll? And I think that's what I will do. I'll spend 1 focus, reroll the die here, and see if I can get, there we go, a +1. But now we got to draw from this bag here. We're going to draw 2 tokens, and let's see what we get. We got 1 yellow, and looks like a purple. All right, so I'm going to choose one of these 2. I will choose purple. And so now that it's done, we get a free rest action. This moves down 1 space. Flip his activation token and decrease the turn by 1. Now that all my characters have activated, we get to flip these back up and we get to choose who gets to go first this time. So I think since Koroks is right there in front of the door, we might as well let him go first. We'll use basic interact again, costing 0, so it's going to go right back to my hand. Roll 1 die. And I do get a +1. So I get to draw 2 again. Let's try this again and see what I get. Oh no, I got a yellow and red, and neither of these are going to work for that. So they'll go back in the bag. But we'll use basic interact one more time for my second turn. Try that again. And it is a +1 again. Let's see what we see if we can do better this time. And this time we drew a white one and a purple one. Oh, that's kind of scary. But we had to put them both out there. But we're 1 step closer. We have 2 purple there, so that's really good. Now we're going to end Koroks' turn, move this over 1 space. We'll flip his activation token and decrease the turn by 1. And so now it's on to Vera. Now she needs to move to get into range because she has the calm wristband. And the calm wristband might be really helpful for her because she can activate for 2. So I think we'll go ahead and use the dash again. Slot that in on the cooldown there. We'll roll 2 dice for that dash. Let's see what we get. And we do get a +2, plus 2 extra moves. So no matter what, we're going to be able to move by that door. This one here is the move symbol. So it just moves you 1 space for each one. And you can decide how you want to split those up or use them, or you don't have to use them at all. Either way, we get +2 to my movement, so that's 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're both adjacent to the door here. And so she will go ahead and use the calm wristband. This is a cooldown of 2, so it will slot in, but in the 3 slot since the 2 slot is full. And now I get to roll 2 dice to see what my modifier is for that. I get a +1, so I get to draw 3. I think I'm okay with that. We only need to draw 1 purple. And I got a red and a purple. So that gives me the 3 purple I need to open the door. So all of these are going to go back in the bag here. And this door will get removed. And now I have access to the room with the terminal. Now she has done both her actions. So we're going to do the free rest action, moving these cards down. We will flip this over and move the turn down 1. So now we're running really close here. We have 3 turns left. You know, all we need to do is hack that terminal. We get to flip these back over here and decide which one we want to use. I think I will use Koroks. I think that might be best. So I'm going to use him. I will do a basic move. I only get to roll 1 die for that. Let's see if I can't get in range. I just need to move 2 spaces. I do get a +1 or an extra move. And so in this case here, I will get to move 1, 2 spaces. And so we're right there next to the console. So we might as well go ahead and use the interact here. We're going to roll a die again for that. And I get a +1 or a shield there. We'll take the +1. We get to draw 2 tokens. And I have a red and yellow this time. Let's see, we'll go with the yellow. We'll place that right here. Now his turn is done. Heavy charge is going off the cooldown track and going back into his hand. And the turn tracker moves to the second space here. We're almost out of turns. Let's see if we can do this. All right, so now it's Vera's turn. So she's going to use the basic move. And then we get 1 die to roll for that. And we're hoping for a +2, a couple extra moves or something like that. We only get a +1. So we move 1 space here and 1 space here. So we'll have to use move again. We don't really need to roll this. We get the +1 anyways, but we're going to move right here. So now they're both next to the console. That, of course, is going to end her turn. These things will get slid down, and she flips her activation token. We move down to turn 1. So we have 1 turn left in order to activate this and hack it. So the question is, which one do we use? Since Vera has the most focus, I think she's the best bet for this. So we'll use Vera. We'll have her start the next round here. She will use our basic interact here. Actually, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to rest, get the calm wristband, and play this right now. I get to interact with the object for 2 plus whatever I roll for the dice. So we're going to see what we can get here. And we get a +2, so that's 4. I can draw 4 tokens. And the question is, do I want to re-roll this for more? It's a really big gamble here. I think I'll stick with 4. And that gamble paid off. Now we got 1 white, but we got 2 yellows and a purple. So those 2 yellows with that 1 yellow is going to be 3, and we'll have successfully hacked the terminal. So the terminal is done here. That's been hacked. And so with that being her second action, she gets the free rest. We activate this. We move the turn order token down. Now, even though it reaches 0, the way this works is we go on to the mission check, right? But you go in order, and so you go in order of the success or trigger conditions or failure. And in this case here, we had the success first. So since the success is to open the door and disable the console, I completed that before we check for the failure, then I have completed the mission. And so now we're going to go on to the new update, and this is going to introduce enemies here. And so what you have is you have 2 colors here. You have yellow 1 and 2 and red 1. These are going to be the enemies that you're going to set up. It tells you what kind of enemies up here. It says the yellow ones are thugs and the red one is a guard. But it also tells you what enemy behavior card you're going to use. And so this is where it gets a little interesting. They have these cards that are called the enemy behavior card, and it tells you how an enemy is going to react based on the color. Now it tells you to set this to the red side to start, so it'll start on this side for the first round, and then the next round this will flip over and it'll activate the yellow ones following these here. And what it tells you on these is pretty straightforward. It says the first red one with the lowest initiative moves to the nearest player and then attacks the nearest player. The second one with the lowest initiative hits the nearest player, then moves to the last activated player. So that's how that works. On the other side, it's just a little bit different. Damaging the nearest player and then move to the last activated player, whereas move to the nearest player and damage to the nearest player. So that's how it works. Now, when enemies move and that sort of thing and make decisions, they do it in the fastest way possible based on the current action that they're doing. They don't take into consideration any of the future actions that they're doing for that particular movement, and you don't have to worry about making decisions on what's best for the enemy based on certain outcomes of the different actions. You only focus on that particular action. They do the quickest movement possible to make that happen. So that's how that works. So we'll flip this over and place it right here. We'll need our enemies here to set up. So we have our yellow 1 and a yellow 2, and again, these are going to actually be little dials that have the number of the character, but also a little health dial that you turn to just show its health. But these 2 will be set up here for now. This one here and this one here. And then the red one here is going to surprise us in this room here. Now what it does tell us is the little bit of the story here. It says that Ambrasius is going to go and get his ship ready with his crew, and we're to meet him. But at the same time, we get all our weapon and gear cards back in hand. We're able to use those again. So Vera gets her pistol back, and then we have the pulse gun and the longsword for Koroks going back into his hand. And so now our new goal is to eliminate all enemies by end of turn 5. And if it reaches 0 or all players are unconscious, we have to restart the mission. And so now we're ready to get started with this. We do have to move this up to 5 here. And the one thing I wanted to remind you is that when enemies are spawned, according to a mission update, that they get to activate the first turn. So we're gonna go off of this activation here. There's only one red enemy, so we'll activate off the top one here. And so he's gonna move to the nearest player and attack the nearest player. So let's talk about what the enemy's stats are here. So on the enemy stats, we have range, movement points, damage it does, whether they're shielded or not, and how many health they have. So when they're shielded, you subtract that much damage from that enemy unless you have damage that's undefendable. And so he's a melee attacker, so he's gonna move within range to attack the nearest player. And so these players are equal spaces away, but Vera is the nearest as far as measurement goes. So he's gonna move straight to Vera here. 1, 2 spaces. And now he's in attacking range, and he's going to straight up attack Vera. She will take 2 damage automatically from his attack, which will reduce her shields first by 2. That leads me to another thing here, and we are now going to talk about this real quick. But now we are going to have to be dealing with damage. This is a damage deck, a wound deck. So anytime you take damage beyond your shield, you're going to have to draw one of these cards. So I'll just draw one randomly here and show you. What it does is it's going to first tell you which of your cooldown slots it goes in. If there is a weapon or ability in that slot, when this gets added, you gain that card back. But then this card does different things depending on your difficulty. So when drawn, place this card on the 3 cooldown. If you're playing hard, ongoing, all non-basic actions have -1 die to a minimum of 0. If you're playing insane, when discarded, move a damage card 1 space to the right on the cooldown track. So that's what these do here. Now, if at some point you are full with wounds and you take another wound, then you become unconscious. So that's how that works. So we'll set these aside for now because I would imagine I will get wounded a couple times. Now that the enemy's activated, it's back to our turn. And so we can decide what we want to do. Now, the nice thing is it's Korok's turn, and he has a cool weapon. He has the Titan Longsword, and it says deal 2 undefendable damage to an adjacent enemy. If you destroy the enemy, gain 2 focus. So it does get to roll 1 die. Now it does have a cooldown of 3, but since he has a shield, we definitely want to use this. So we'll place this here in our 3 cooldown spot. We're going to roll a die here, and we're going to hope for a +2. We want to deal 4 damage to this enemy. Let's give it a shot. It's a +1. That's not too bad. We'll take it. And so we will deal 3 damage to that enemy. Now I don't have anything fancy to track health. I will use these discs here, and we'll place them underneath, sorry, we'll place them underneath him. So now he's taken 3 damage. But I would imagine that we'll kill him in just a moment here because that was just 1 action for Korok. He can do another action. So I can either use the pulse gun to deal 2 damage. Again, he'll block 1 with his shield, so that would be 1 damage. Doesn't roll any dice on this one, so I don't know if I want to use that or not. And then I could just do a basic interact, which deals 1 damage to an adjacent enemy, and if I modify it, I could deal enough damage. So that's what I'll do, basic interact, and we'll see. We get a +1, so that's 2 damage minus 1 shield, does 1 more damage, and it's going to kill off this guard. So the guard's dead. That finishes Korok's turn, so we will move the cards 1 space down for the free rest, flip the activation token, and move the turn token. And then we move on to the mission check here, and we haven't completed it. We need to defeat all enemies, so the mission check doesn't happen. Now we do the enemy turn, and it's red or yellow. Well, now we flip it over. And so now it's the yellow's turn. And since there are no more red enemies right now, it'll always stay on the yellow side. And so we start off with the lowest initiative one. It's going to damage the nearest player. This is the number 1 here. He's the lowest initiative. There's nobody nearby in range of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. How line of sight works is you draw a line from the middle of that character's space to any part touching the target. But in this case here, we actually have this wall here blocking us. So it's blocking line of sight, so he can't shoot this direction. Even if he could, that's still more than 4 spaces away. And so he's gonna move within range of the last activated player, which is Koroks. And so his movement is 3. And if he moves, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Let's see, if he moves here, looks like the wall might still be blocking him. So he'll need to move to this space here. So he's going to move to this space here, and he's going to line up a shot for the next turn. Now the other character, he's going to move, and he's going to try and line up to the nearest player here. So he's going to go 1, 2 spaces right here, and now he can shoot at Koroks here. So he's going to deal 1 damage, and it's going to bring Korok's shield down by 1. And so now we move on. We flip these back over and decide who's going to go first. And so I think I will choose Vera because she can shoot at that enemy right now. So we have line of sight to that enemy. And so we're going to use her pistol here. And the pistol slots in on the 3 spot here. We'll roll 2 dice. Now the pistol's already going to deal 3 damage. But let's see what else we can get. Maybe we can get some shields back. And it doesn't look like it, but we can get a free move out of it. So I don't know if I want that. Maybe I do. Either way, we deal enough damage to kill off this enemy. That's more than enough. He only has 3 health. And so I have to decide if I want to use that move. I think I will. I will move her 1 space to here. I don't think I'm going to do another action with her, so I will do an extra rest action, bringing me back the comms card, but then I'll gain a free rest at the end of her turn, moving that down 1 more space. Flip her activation token over, move the turn marker down, and now it's the enemy's turn. And he's going to shoot the nearest player and move within range of the last activated player. Well, first he'll shoot. He'll deal 1 damage to Vera, bringing her shields down to 0. And then he's already in range with her, so he's not going to move at all. Now it's Koroks' turn. And so we're going to use Heavy Charge. Now Heavy Charge says move 2 spaces and then deal 2 damage to an adjacent enemy. This will slot in the 3 slot here. That's really kind of nice. Now we do get to roll our dice first to decide how we want to modify everything. And so I can gain a shield and do extra damage or extra movement. So that +2 can go for the movement or the damage. I will use it for the damage, I think, because that's all I need. And so we'll gain the shield here. We'll move 1, 2 spaces here, dealing the 4 damage to this enemy here, and now this enemy's dead. And I don't have any other action for him to do, so we will do a manual rest. Then we'll get a free rest, and then we'll be ready for the next round here. We'll flip this over, move the turn order token down, and then we're doing a mission check. Now, of course, our mission was to defeat all enemies on the board, and that has been completed. So we're done, and now we need to move on to mission update 3. And this will be the final mission update for this particular mission. So first of all, we remove the 2 blocked entrances. So these 2 here are now removed. And then we're going to be adding a door to this spot over here. Let's see, right here. And on top of that, we're going to add on the ship. All right, so the ship is getting added on. And that's this ship here. We'll set it up on this side here to show where the entrance to the door here. And we're going to try and escape on the ship. That's going to be our goal. So we have the door there. We do have another console to hack. And so I will add this one right here. And then we have guards in different spaces. And so Ambrasius has told us that they're ready to take off, but there's a console that controls a tractor beam holding the ship there. There's a door that's barricading us from entering into the ship. So we have to hack both of those to open those up. Meanwhile, we're going to have enemies coming after us. And so we have our first choice. All right, so we can open the door, disable the console, and get all players on board of the ship, or eliminate all enemies. Now, one thing to understand is the ship is part of the map and can be boarded or exited by players only. Enemies will not move towards or target players already on board of the ship. And if the turn token reaches 0 or all players are unconscious, restart the mission. Now there's a couple more setup things here to take into consideration. Players may move up to 5 squares from their current spot. That's really helpful. I think we will take advantage of that. So Koroks will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there. And then Vera 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That gets us closer to the door and the console. I think that's the right move. And so, like I said, there are 2 different mission parameters, so we can choose which way to go with this. And so I'm not going to spoil what happens when you do one of these two. See, it changes the mission outcome, and it can change things. There's various things that you need to take in consideration that affect the game. So your choices, whether you kill people or not, affect the game. They can affect reputation and other things in the mission outcomes. So you have to decide, do you want to go the peaceful way or eliminate enemies or whatever you'd like to do. Now for this particular part of the mission, they have a new attack card that they're going off of. And so they'll be going off of the disorganized attack. All right. So this one here, it says if the activated enemy was damaged on the last player's turn, use the exclamation point instead. So it has this new action at the bottom here. And it says move as far away as possible from the player who damaged this enemy by using any route, entrance, or wall cover available. And so they'll move up to their movement value. So basically they're going to run away if you try and attack them. That's how that's going to work. It's going to start on the red side here. I'll just place it right here. Now the red are going to activate, and the one with the lowest initiative is going to try and move within range of the nearest player, which is Vera, and try and shoot her. And so he has a movement of 3, but he's melee. So 1, 2, 3, and he's not in range to attack, so he cannot use his attack ability. The second one is going to attack the nearest player, which it cannot, and then it's going to move to the nearest player again, 1, 2, and 3. So the guards are chasing after us. The thugs are here in the hangar here and then by the terminal. I did forget to reset the turn token. We actually get 9 turns out of this, so that's not too bad. We do have to flip these over at this point and choose a new person to start the round. I think I will go with Vera first. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use jetpack. We haven't used that yet. And so jetpack lets me jump over objects or empty spaces for 5 spaces. And I can't jump over walls or closed doors. So that's really cool. I do get to roll 1 die. So we're going to roll the die first. And looks like a +1 or a shield. Oh, that's tempting. I don't have any shields. So maybe I should get the shield because that might be helpful. Let's see. I want to get to either the door or the console here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can make it to the console. Maybe that's what I should do. So I will take the 1 shield because I don't need the bonus. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so now Vera is adjacent to the console. Now we do have to remember that if I attack him, he's going to run away the next turn. So instead of interacting with the console right now, I think I will just use a basic interact to try and damage him and have him run away. So we will roll 1 die for that. It's a +2. Oh, well, I don't know if I want to kill him. I kind of want to do the peaceful thing here. But if I do kill him, he'll be out of my way. So maybe that's what I'll do. I'll just kill him. Bye, he's dead. I'm not going to be peaceful. I'm a mercenary, for goodness sake. I'm getting out of here at all costs. All right, so that was my choice. I'm going on the evil side. So that dude is dead. And so now it's the end of Vera's turn. We're gonna get a free rest action, gaining the pistol back to my hand. Flip over the activation token and move the turn token down 1 space. And now we go into the enemy turn, flipping this over to the yellow side. And so the lowest initiative one is the only one left, this one here. It's going to attack the nearest player, which it will attack Koroks. It'll deal 1 damage to Koroks, bringing his shield down by 1. And then it'll move towards the last activated player and try and get in range. Remembering that he has a range of 4. So he's going to try and get in range of Vera here. So we have 1 and 2, just like that. Now he's in range to shoot Vera. So now it's Koroks' turn. He doesn't have his heavy charge, but he's tempted to use it. So maybe he rests, gets the heavy charge back, and plays it. And so he's gonna do that. He's gonna roll 1 die. He gets a +2. So we're gonna move 2 spaces, 1, 2, and then boom. Just hit this guy for 4 damage, and now he's dead. Koroks decided he's going to be evil too. So that's our teamwork. We're going to the dark side here. So now Koroks is done. Get the free rest, flip his token, move the turn order down, check for the mission complete, which has not been done yet. Again, it's either open the door and do the console or kill all enemies. At this point, we're probably going to kill all enemies. Now we go on to the enemy activation, flipping it over to the red side now, which it will stay for the duration. And so this one says, let's see, the lowest move to the nearest player, so 3 spaces. Actually, probably this space, because it's going to go 1, 2, 3. And he's going to go 1, 2, and 3 like that. Again, they can't attack because they're not in melee range. Now Vera's going to try and do some little hacking here. She'll use her calm, which it'll go in the 3 slot because the jetpack is currently taking up the 2 slot. So she gets a roll to activate. Let's see. We get 1 shield and 1 bonus. So we get to draw 3 tokens, and we have 2 yellows and a purple. So obviously we'll take the yellows and we'll place that right by the console there. Now she's not done. She's going to activate again using the basic interact. We do get only 1 roll for this one. Let's see what we get. Get a +1, so we'll get to draw 2 from the bag. Oh man, what are the odds? We got 2 whites, so that is a failed hack. So automatically everything gets reset and gets dropped back into the bag. That was awful. So she's just not good at hacking. Well, that's going to end her turn. I did forget to flip these back over, but hers is going to get flipped over. We'll get that free rest, move the turn token down 1, and then we're going to activate the enemies again. So the first one here is going to move to the nearest player, 1, 2, and 3. Now is in range of Koroks and going to do attack. So these here do 2 damage, so Koroks will take 2 to his shields. Next up, the other one cannot attack, but he'll move in range, so 1, 2 to that spot there. All right, so now it's Koroks' turn. So he definitely wants to use his Titan Longsword. He's committed to the path of killing everything, and so he's going to use that. Now here's the interesting thing. Just so you know, you don't have to commit to your target until after the roll. So you can decide that in the moment, but it doesn't matter. These are the same kind of guys and they're the same kind of health, so it doesn't matter which one I hit. But I get to roll 1 die, and let's see what we get. Oh, we get a +2. Check that out. So that's 4 undefendable damage, which instantly kills one of these guys. I'll kill this one here. Wow, that was awesome. Now he does have 1 more action for the turn, so I think he's gonna use the pulse gun. No, I think I will just go ahead and use the basic interact. That's the one I'm going to use. So once again, we roll 1 die to see what we get. And it's nothing but a couple moves. So I only deal 1 damage, which gets blocked by his shield, so he's undamaged. So it's not going to activate him running away. So I don't need to move. So I'll just stay right there and just cancel the move. I don't need it. So at this point, that's going to end his turn. We'll get the free rest. Move the activation token over, move the turn token down 1, and now we're going to check for mission complete. We still have 1 enemy, so not complete yet. And then now it is the enemy's turn. It's going to move towards the nearest player, which it already is, and it's going to attack the nearest player, taking my shields down to 0. All right, so now we can flip these back over, and I think I'll start off with Vera. Now, she's not in line of sight right now to hit him with the gun because that wall is right in the way. From the middle of her square, yeah, I don't see a line of sight there, so that's not going to work. So she's going to have to move, so we'll use a basic move for that, and we'll see how we do. Get 1 extra space, so we can go 1, I guess right up next to him here, and then we will shoot him, and let's see. We definitely want a +2 to this, because she does 3 damage with it, but it'll only be 2 against him, and he has 4 health. So we will roll. See what we get, and we get a +2. How about that? And now he's dead. All right. So at this point, I have now won the mission. And again, what happens here is you're going to go to the final mission update, which I don't really want to show you what's on that because I don't want to spoil how that turns out. But basically, you get onto the ship, and then you have a debrief with Ambrosius, and then you have the results of your choices for that mission, and how it affects your characters and possible reputation effects as well. I probably said too much with that. And so there you have it. That was the tutorial and solo playthrough of the first tutorial campaign mission for Rogue Angels Legacy of the Burning Suns by Emil Larsen in SunTzu Games. Again, this is going to be coming to Kickstarter on September 4th. I also have a 5 after 5 preview video for you to watch as I've gone through several of the missions and seen kind of how the outcomes work and how the different boosts to the cards, like those boosts I showed you before, where they do extra things and gives you extra options if you spend tokens for that. So there's some really neat mechanics here. And so definitely check out my 5 after 5 preview video where I give my impressions of the game. Please bear in mind that I have not received anything to do this tutorial solo playthrough. This prototype copy will be leaving my house and going on to the next person, and so take that into consideration. Definitely ask me any questions in the comments below. Please also like and subscribe to this channel if you like the content you see here. And if you'd like to support me on Patreon, I have a link in the description, and I thank everyone who has supported me thus far. And I thank you very much for joining me on Tabletop for One. Have a great night.